The sun was sinking low behind the jagged cliffs of Arizona, turning the sky into a blazing fire of orange and crimson. In the quiet town of Silver Creek, dust swirled across the empty street as people watched a young Apache girl walk alone. Her name was Ayanna, fierce in spirit, yet her eyes carried the weight of rejection. She had lost her tribe to war and her family to hatred. The white settlers saw her as different, untouchable, someone not worthy of belonging. She had wandered from ranch to ranch, asking only for work, food, and shelter, but the doors always shut before her. The whispers followed her wherever she went. No man wants her. That day, when she stood in the middle of the town square, her voice trembled, but her pride didn't break. "No man wants me," she said to no one and everyone at once. "But I don't need pity. I only need a place to stand." The townsfolk looked away. All but one man, a cowboy named Luke Carter, leaned on the post outside the general store, his hat low over his eyes, his face marked with years of hardship and quiet decency. He was a man of few words but strong convictions, the kind who measured worth not by blood, but by heart. Something in the girl's voice struck a chord deep within him. He stepped forward, boots thudding against the dust. "You'll have a place to stand," he said. The town froze as he walked up to her. "If no man wants you, then I'll take you with me. My ranch is open for those who've been left behind." Ayanna looked up, confused, searching his eyes for mockery, but found none, only honesty and a touch of sadness that matched her own. She followed him that day, through miles of desert and wind, until they reached his small ranch tucked beneath the red hills. The land was quiet, the fences old, and the stables half empty, but to Ayanna it felt like the first place she could breathe. Luke showed her where the horses grazed, how to mend a saddle, and how to find her rhythm with the land. Days turned into weeks, and slowly something changed in her eyes. Where once there had been fear, now there was strength. The townsfolk, at first scornful, began to whisper again, but this time in disbelief. The Apache girl they had cast out was now the heart of the Carter ranch. She rode horses better than any man, worked harder than most, and even the animals seemed to sense her calm spirit. Luke watched her in silence, his admiration growing each day, though he never spoke of it. One evening, as the sun painted the fields gold, Ayanna sat on the fence looking toward the horizon. "Why did you take me in?" she asked softly. Luke smiled beneath his hat. "Because I know what it's like to be unwanted," he said. "But sometimes the people no one wants are the ones who carry the most light." She looked down, tears forming. "They said I would never belong anywhere." He turned to her, voice steady and full of warmth. "You belong here, Ayanna. Maybe not because of where you came from, but because of who you are now." From that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not just kindness, but a bond that neither time nor prejudice could break. Together they rebuilt the ranch side by side, their laughter filling the air once haunted by loneliness. One night, the townsfolk came to see them at the county fair. Ayanna stood proudly beside Luke, her traditional beads shining in the firelight, her hands calloused from hard work, yet graceful as she handled the horses. When one of the men who had once mocked her stepped forward and said, "You've changed her life," Luke shook his head. "No," he said simply. "She changed mine." In the crowd, silence fell, and for the first time, they saw her not as an outcast, but as a woman of courage and dignity. She had not just survived rejection, she had transformed it into power. As the music played and laughter echoed through the night, Luke and Ayanna danced under the stars, two souls once broken, now whole because they had found home in each other's strength. Their story became legend in Silver Creek. People would tell it to their children, about the Apache girl who said no man wanted her, and the cowboy who proved that love isn't about where you come from, but where you choose to go together. And in that dusty little town, where once there was judgment, now there was respect. Because sometimes the ones the world turns away are the ones who teach it what true grace looks like. If you felt touched by Ayanna and Luke's story, the story of courage, acceptance, and love that crosses every boundary. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Every story here carries a message of hope, and by subscribing, you help keep these powerful tales alive. Months passed, and life on the ranch began to bloom like spring after a long winter. Ayana woke each morning before dawn, her spirit alive with purpose. She had learned to tame wild horses, mend fences, and even laugh again. But deep inside, a quiet fear lingered, that one day the world would remind her she didn't belong. Luke noticed her silence at times, especially when townsfolk visited and gave her wary glances. One afternoon he found her by the corral, staring at the hills. "You thinking about leaving?" he asked gently. She hesitated, eyes glistening. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm meant to stay. People still see me as different." Luke placed a hand on her shoulder. "Different doesn't mean less. You've brought life back to this ranch, Ayana. You belong more than anyone." His words settled in her heart like a seed. That evening, as the sun sank low, a sudden storm swept across the valley. Fences broke and the cattle scattered. Ayana didn't hesitate. She rode into the rain with fearless determination. Luke followed, watching in awe as she guided the herd back through lightning and mud. When it was over, they stood drenched but smiling, the storm behind them. Luke looked at her with admiration that could no longer hide.